All right, guys, I think we are live. We are live now on YouTube. So thanks so much for checking out the stream. Feel free to drop any comments you want in the chat. I'll be trying to get to that as much as I can. Answering questions, just saying hi. Oh, I'm getting a weird little feedback in my ear. Give me a sec here. Okay, I'm back. This is a little weird. I'm new to this. Let me sort this out real quick. Feel free to drop something in the chat in the meantime, and I will get back to that. Here, let me drop my own volume in my ears. Okay. All right. I think that's still kicking. Cool. All right. So, guys, first of all, thanks for checking out the stream. I know I've been kind of neglecting the YouTube side of Because Jitsu for a little while, and I do apologize for that. I've got a lot of free content up there if you guys haven't checked it out already, mostly technique stuff. Hey, Helen, how's it going? I see you in there. Let's talk about Rear Naked Radio. Yeah, we will definitely get to that. I had a whole lot of technique stuff going on this channel that was kicking, it was bumping, it was starting to get lit in there. But besides the whole coronavirus pandemic that sort of shut down a lot of things when it comes to technique, I spent a bunch of time previous to that, sort of in between when I was using this channel a lot to when that shutdown happened, to work on this reverse Kimura series that I put together. So I put a lot of work into that, and it kind of took away from this channel. So I do apologize about that, but we will be getting more content up here more often. And this is going to be part of that content. So I'm looking into doing more lives and sort of, vibing back and forth between everybody who's stuck at home and, wishing they can do jiu-jitsu to ask me any questions you got. So I'll be happy to field any questions like Helen's saying about Rear Naked Radio. If you guys don't know, I run a podcast with my co-host Jamie Kilstein, professional comedian. It's a kick-ass podcast. We put one out every Monday, so make sure you check that out. We've got the videos here on YouTube on the Rear Naked Radio YouTube channel, as well as on obviously all of your podcasting mediums, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, all that stuff. Lots of good stuff, lots of good guests. We've actually got a pretty badass guest coming up this next week in Mac Lethal. So if you like YouTube, he is a YouTube king. He is a YouTube rapper who's got, I think, over 3 or 4 million subscribers on YouTube already, but he's also a BJJ purple belt. So it should be a fun conversation with him. And yeah, we might actually take some questions about that, or previous to that, I might throw it up on the Instagram stories asking what to ask Mac Lethal about jiu-jitsu. Should be pretty fun. Hey, BJJ Problems, Brett jumped into the chat. How's it going, fella? All right, well, I've got a couple questions that I had logged on Instagram that I'm going to start with, and feel free to drop any more into the chat as we go. Hey, why do you say BJJ? I say BJJ because that is an acronym. I believe that's how you abbreviate it. It saves you syllables, right? Syllables are an expensive commodity. You got to save those. All right, let's start with somebody was asking, self-defense or sport, what is more important for the future of BJJ? That's an interesting question. So I think I answered this on a previous chat, but I'll throw it out here on this one as well. So obviously, the main reason why most people start jiu-jitsu is for self-defense. I think that's by and large probably like 99 out of 100 reasons why people start jiu-jitsu. So self-defense is always going to be the primary reason people start. As far as the reach of the sport goes out into the mainstream, out towards people who don't know what it is, sport is probably the avenue to do that, whether it's MMA, right? You see jiu-jitsu and MMA, or maybe even if we get into the Olympics, that might be a good way to use sport to promote the art to get people into it for self-defense. So I think that they go hand in hand, but they serve different purposes. All right, jiu-jitsu, 3 syllables. Yeah, Brett, I guess this is, we're in gridlock right there. BJJ, jiu-jitsu, kind of a dealer's choice. Okay, Brandon Chase, you should visit Newfoundland sometime. Yeah, I've never been out to the east in the U.S., or I'm sorry, in Canada. I am here in Alberta, Canada, for those who don't know. It's sort of a little more western than that, and have not been any more east than Toronto. I think that's as far east as I've gone. Have not been to Newfoundland, Brandon, unfortunately. One of these days. I'll get around. Another question here. So, the most unexpected thing when starting a gym. Okay, so I know a lot of people that are getting into jujitsu that love it as a student, have aspirations as they get up through the belts towards starting their own school. It's Do not lose sight of that dream. That is an amazing goal to reach for, but there are a lot of pitfalls that you can fall into when you're actually trying to start a school. Probably the main thing that I was aware of, I guess. So maybe it wasn't the most unforeseen to me, but it is for a lot of people, and it's not necessarily wrong, but I found it was wiser for myself to start very small. Okay, so you may have it in you that you want a big gym, or you want a fancy gym, you want an expensive gym, and you're going to go to the bank and get a $100,000 loan or something to build your dream gym. That's all well and good, but if you don't have a student base to pay for that for the next few months, you're going to go bankrupt in a hurry, because bills are ridiculously expensive. You never more so is it's obvious than now when nobody's got students that are paying for it. Like this gym I'm sitting in right now, like I've got thousands of dollars leaving my bank every month, waiting for people to pay back in, and that's nobody's going to cry for that gym in the meantime. So you've got to have a good game plan figured out for your income, being able to support your gym that you're obviously training in fast. Okay, it can't be like a 6 months down the road kind of thing, because you'll get bled dry. Back into the chat here, Matthew Van Dyke says, my work forces me to go to Toronto in December. Oh, from California. Cool. That's a crazy work to go cross-continent like that. Helen, all of the snacks you love, of which there are many, what are your top 3? Yeah, for those who don't know, I run the diet that's called the cautionary tale diet, which is basically all of the snacks that your dietitian doesn't want you to eat. That's basically my main staple. I like chips, or as Helen would say, crisps in the Great, where is that Great Britain, or is it just Europe in general? Crisps. Anyways, I'm a big fan of those. Carb load me up real quick. I'd say that's up at the top. Salt and vinegar me any day. I'm good. Martial Arts Flow says, I'm currently a white belt of 6 months. Congratulations. Awesome. I really love the thought of playing rubber guard, but I'm still mastering fundamentals. Do you think I should wait until blue belt to start rubber guard? It depends on your focus. So if you are in a traditional school somewhere with this training in the gi, they probably don't have a lot of focus on rubber guard at all. So it's going to be very incumbent on you to basically learn 2 things at once, being the rubber guard system, which is intense. Like, it's not a small system. It's basically its own style, a large part of the 10th planet style, on top of whatever your instructor is teaching you as a white belt. So that's a lot to put onto your plate. If you're that type of person that can absorb that much new information and apply it and master it, all power to you. I know I was very interested in rubber guard when I was starting out. Never really got too far into it, though, for that reason, in that I was learning so many new things at class that to add another addendum style to the one that I was already being taught was too much. So I played around with Gogo Plata from guard, and that was about as far as I got. Mr. Sam Zemuel, that's a cool name. With lockdown in mind, your brilliant Reverse Kimura series troubleshooting section doesn't include what happens when your untrained wife purchases or punches you in the balls once you get the grip. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a large section on ball punching in the Reverse Kimura, so it might be something I have to add to it. Good eye. Make sure to wear a can. Your wife sounds vicious. What a savage. Anybody who was lucky enough to get that series, I had it available for free to the world for a weekend for about 3 days a few weeks ago, and we pushed a lot of those out there. So hopefully you got that. You're enjoying it. I've got nothing but good feedback on it. So appreciate everybody out there. Can't wait for the gyms to open up so that people can actually start using it and sending footage in and starting to experiment on it. Because one of the most exciting things for me, besides just getting my information out there to the masses, is waiting for them to utilize it, right? So it's kind of this strange little pause that we have on training, that once that pause gets lifted and we all get back to the mats, I think we're going to see an explosion of that grip's usage, because it is a very, very powerful grip. And I think a lot of people are going to plug it into their game immediately. If you haven't checked it out, if you didn't get that free release, you can go get it for purchase still at reversekimura.com. And check out Reverse Kimura on Instagram for lots of other videos. Daron in the chat, Daron Kim, well, if he's 6 months white belt, then he isn't a 4.5 month white belt. That's true. That's a full hour here. So you got any questions, drop them in there. Anything about jiu-jitsu, anything about memes, anything about Reverse Kimura, anything about whatever, you know, I'm here for you guys. So Pedro Tavares says, Reverse Kimura gang, nice. Gang, boy. I got the free version, but I've been trying to buy it before and couldn't somehow. Probably international problematics. Send me an email if you haven't already. I got so many inboxes, dude, to keep up on that. If I haven't replied to you, I will try to just send it again to sort of bump it up to queue, because it's a daily struggle trying to keep on Instagram DMs, Facebook DMs, YouTube emails. It's never ending. Even when there's no jiu-jitsu going on, I got nonstop DMs. So I'll try to fix that for you if I can. Yeah. What else we got here for questions? So I had a guy who was asking me not too long ago about the blue belt syndrome. So if there's any blue belts in the chat, you're a rare species, because apparently you all evaporate after you get it. You want to hear a funny story? Is like literally the day before my gym shut down for the pandemic, we had a promotion of 6 people to blue belt, and it was just perfect, because the moment they got their blue belt, then they just disappeared into the wild, never to use it again. It was almost too perfect. But people are always asking, what's up with blue belts? Why do they always quit? Why does it have such a high attrition rate at that belt specifically? I think the answer to that is twofold. I think firstly, white belt is the hardest belt, bar none. It just is, because the learning curve is so steep and everybody above you is just stomping you every class, right? It's a lot of wear and tear physically, mentally, more so than any other belt, I believe. So just that, year and a half, 2.5 year slog to try to get from white belt up to blue belt for that first promotion feels like such a never-ending battle, that to finally make that first promotion feels like you've achieved it, right? You're done, you've achieved it. And sort of that aha feeling of like, oh, I finally made it, I think people will feel like that's good enough. I did what I need to do. I'm a good grappler now, that's it. That's the first part. And then the second part is quite seriously, no jokes at all, blue belts are competent grapplers. So if you are starting jiu-jitsu to become a competent grappler, you're already how to do jiu-jitsu to a competent level. You're not an expert by any means. There's a lot you can learn over that, but compared to a regular human being, you're basically a god on the ground. They don't have a clue. They're the first day white belt that you just wipe up. So if that's all you were looking for, was some self-defense to be the superior grappler in most confrontations against 99% of humanity, you achieve that. Anything above blue belt, you're basically learning how to fight competent grapplers, which is not really a realistic scenario out there on the wild streets. All right, back into the chat here. We got, looks like Martial Arts Flow and Pedro are talking back and forth. Do you think we'll find ourselves in a dystopian reality where we'll be training with masks on? Well, funny story. I actually saw some company that was creating grappling masks. It was like a full face thing with eye holes and like a Scorpion Sub-Zero mask looking thing on the front. Um, so it does exist. Whether that becomes trend, I just don't see it happening, you know. I think that more likely we're in a very strange bubble right now in world history where the human race by and large is not is more susceptible to this virus than they'll ever be in the future. Okay, so more and more people are getting antibodies to it, are getting past it. We're starting to figure out antivirals. We're starting to figure out treatments. We're eventually going to have a vaccine. In the future, you know, maybe even a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, this COVID-19 version of coronavirus is not going to be nearly as big a deal as it is right now. And I think that's, although hopefully a lot of the societal changes around, you know, sneezing in public and washing your hands is going to change fundamentally. That's not a bad thing by any means to stop any transmission, but I just don't see the actual large scale changing of society around wearing masks constantly and always sanitizing everything, every surface. I don't see that sticking around. I just know the human race too well to think that we're going to change forever. So I really don't see that changing in grappling. It'll eventually, once we get back onto the mats and start normalizing, and especially after like a year from now when it's not nearly as prevalent or as dangerous, we're not going to, I don't think, be using that type of, well, hopefully this isn't a time capsule that you can just come back to in a couple of years and be like, look, man, we're all in biohazard suits. You didn't know shit. That might be the case too. Who knows? All right. Helen says, how many people has Danaher really killed? In my opinion, well, there's a lot of people that train in that blue dungeon, and I don't see a lot of pros. I see the same few pros that keep competing. So I think that a lot of them die. You wouldn't know it either. They're right by, was it the Potomac? they're right by a river they can dump them in. Pedro says, I literally got my blue belt 1 week before lockdown. RIP. Man, drop an F in the chat for Pedro. And it took me about 3 years to get it. Well, first of all, congratulations. It's a long, arduous journey. Trust me, it was about 2.5 years for me too. So I know the feeling just getting to that blue belt. So, man, hold on to that thing. Don't you disappear on me, Pedro. You stay training once we get back. I know you will. BJJ Problems is wrist locking white belts in the chat. You savage. Can't even get you to wear it in rolls. Here's the thing, is going 100% is kind of a weird thing in that nobody really does that for the whole roll. Even if you're trying to, you can't. Unless you have like unbelievable Energizer Bunny energy, which most people in the grappling sense don't. They'll peter out within a minute to 3 minutes into a 5-minute round. So going 100%, really, you only ever need to do that in bursts. And the more efficient you get at finding the right time to use those bursts, the less energy you actually have to use in total. So you can be a nice guy and, you know, use your energy efficiently, and that will actually work well for your jiu-jitsu. But it's just the trick is finding those times and getting used to it and building your style around staying safe until you can utilize your techniques in the most energy efficient manner possible. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on the chat. We're going crazy in here. All right. Daron says, your memes just got featured on Tasteless Gentlemen. Oh, damn, that's cool. That's a fun Instagram profile. They got almost 2 million followers on there. It's basically like a dirty guy humor page. So, you know, trigger warning to those who can't take it, but it's pretty funny. They feature a lot of, surprisingly, a lot of MMA and jiu-jitsu memes on there, because at least one out of, I think, the 5 people, the moderators that run that page is, at least the last time I talked to him, he was a purple belt. He may even be a brown belt by now. So they got that jiu-jitsu seed in their group. So I don't know, if you like that type of humor, check it out. I really enjoy their page. And yeah, they're in the scene. Hey, maybe we'll get them on a podcast. For those of you who haven't checked out Rear Naked Radio podcast yet, definitely check it out. We're coming up on episode 21. It's going to be dropping this Monday. And of those 21 episodes, we've got just kick-ass guests. When you think about it, for how young the podcast is, like we're not even 25 episodes in, and we've had names like Kenny Florian, Eddie Bravo, Huron Gracie, Tate Fletcher, Carlos Condit, like very high-end, upper echelon guests. And we've got Mac Lethal coming up. We've got a lot of people that would shock you that are they're related to jiu-jitsu, but not necessarily like the jiu-jitsu champion type. So we're getting them as well, for sure. Like we've had Fionn Davies, we've had Claudio Doval, we've got in touch with Braulio Estimo wants to do it. We've got in touch with Kean Cornelius wants to do it. But I'm really interested in like celebrities that train and personalities who train and people who, you know, love jiu-jitsu as a side hobby, but are more well-known for other things. That really interests me. So we're getting a bunch of those guests coming up. We just started season 2, so definitely check that out. Back to the comments section, try catch up. Brandon's dropping Stockton quotes. Podcast is so good. Thank you, Thomas. Thomas Lloyd is in the know. No, I'm quitting now, says Pedro. I started training at 32. Wow, that's a late start. Good for you, though. I started about 24, and I thought that was late. Everybody thinks that when they started is late, unless they started when they're 4 years old. You know what I mean? You could always have started earlier. And I'm clocking it on 36 now. Yeah, right on. My real objective is purple, but I'm pretty sure I'll keep going. Well, here's the thing, man. Like, if you are dead set on purple, then you're probably going to get to black. Here's something crazy that might blow your mind. First of all, the statistics that have been gathered around people who get to purple belt, the majority of them will get their black belt. So that's a good stat. If you can just reach purple, you're very likely to get to black. And part of that is because you've built up that regularity. This is part of your life now. This is something that you're not ditching on. You know, it's hard to get to purple belt without having that type of consistency, which is really the main ingredient to get into your black belt is consistency. But then the other thing that's going to blow your mind is it's really not that far from purple belt to black belt. It's funny to think about it because it could be like 4 or 5 years of training between purple and black or more. But I had a friend who was a 3-stripe black belt tell me when I was a purple belt that, oh man, he asked me, you know, what rank are you? And I was like, I'm a purple belt. He's like, oh, so you're almost a black belt. I was like, no, I'm not. What do you mean almost a black belt? You forgot a whole belt in there. He's like, no, but think of it like this. Like, it takes me 3 years just to get a single stripe on my black belt. Like, you may actually get your black belt before I get my next stripe on my belt. I was like, huh. You know, that's kind of crazy. Like, retroactively, and as a black belt now looking back, yeah, it's really, there's not a whole lot of time in between belts. Like a couple of years in between belts, 2, maybe 3 years on average. It's not a long time. It goes by fast. And once you get to black belt, I mean, it's just your black belt for the rest of your life. So those 2-year increments don't even seem like anything once you're there. So anyways, long story short, keep at it. And Pedro, you're going to be a purple belt, then you know, brown belt, then black belt. But you'll get to black, I'm pretty sure. Oh, Daron said he started at 41. I can never tell because Daron is such a sexy individual that he could be 25, he could be 35. I wouldn't even know. He said he started at 41. Damn, so he must be like 72 now, hey? Crazy. AJ Sandelik in the chats. Doesn't Jonah Hill do BJJ? Yes, he does. And interestingly enough, our first guest on Rear Naked Radio was Kenny Florian, who trains Jonah Hill. So we have, you know, direct contact to his trainer. It could be in the mix. I know that Daron has some friends who are friends with celebrities down in California, or we're working on some things to try to get some really interesting guests, because I mean it's so much fun for me, and I know that anybody who trains jiu-jitsu loves talking about jiu-jitsu, so it's actually not that difficult to get them to want to do jiu-jitsu or to talk about jiu-jitsu if they do it. So we just need to let them know, like, hey, we've got a podcast, you're welcome on, and you'd be surprised how many people say yes. Yeah, Brett from BJJ Problems is saying, yeah, Ashton Kutcher, Ed O'Neill, Maynard James Keenan, Mario Lopez, Demi Lovato, Brett Gold, Jerome Kim. Yeah, there are a lot of high-end people who train in the acting community. So that would be fun. I think we'll get a few of those on the podcast. So tune in to make sure that you don't miss those, because they will for sure be coming in the future. Let's see, a black belt. She's a 20 stripe white belt. Hell yeah, it is. Martial arts flow. How do I build a takedown game with enough takedowns I can sufficiently pull off? Okay, so if you're interested in getting a good takedown game, you're going to want to figure out which ones work best for your style, for your body type, and then how to chain them together. And you only need like 2 to 4 good takedowns that are related to each other, that you can sort of flow back and forth in between. Just, you know, single leg to high crotch, double leg, hip throw. You can chain some of these things together in a constant attack to finally take a guy down. Like oftentimes, especially at higher levels, when you're in a stand-up battle trying to take someone down, doesn't want to go down, like they're not pulling guard on you, you're going to have to take them down. It's not going to be the first thing that gets them. Just the same way as when you're on your back, it's usually not the first sweep that's going to get them. It's their reaction to stopping that sweep that's going to, you know, get them swept over the second sweep that chains into it. So I would just suggest trying to find your favorite takedowns and then good ways to chain them together to make it like a machine gun kind of attack to get them to the ground. All right, AJ saying, man, if Anthony Bourdain was still with us, oh man, drop an F in the chat for Anthony. That would have been awesome. Would have been amazing to have him on for sure. Yeah, that was a sad day. Like I never even watched his shows, but I had listened to him on podcasts and seen some documentaries with him. Yeah, hell of a human. Unfortunately, things did not end up very well for him. I think it's been almost 2 years, right? Oh, well, yes. Daron's saying he is 72. Nailed it. I knew it. Yeah, I got an F in the chat. Damn. But, you know, man, this is something that you learn the more that you are in jiu-jitsu. Is anybody who does jiu-jitsu, it doesn't matter what their life's background is, they're still just people, right? Like, don't turn people into heroes just because you see them in the public eye. They're still people, you know. They deal with their own problems every day, and I mean the saying is always never meet your heroes, and you'll figure that out too the longer you stay in jiu-jitsu. Like if you idolize somebody, if they're a competitor or if they're an influencer of some sort, the being good at jiu-jitsu and being a good person, or even being a reputable person, is they're mutually exclusive more often than not. So if you can find those rare gems that are both a good person and good at jiu-jitsu, definitely hold on to them, because they're fewer than you might think. Me and Dad watched him all the time. He was my dad's hero. It was super shitty. Yeah, it sucks, man. Helen in here, guys, go subscribe to Rear Naked Radio YouTube and follow us on Insta. Yes, very easy to do that. I'll throw some links into the description of this video that will be up for posterity later. So guys, if you are watching this later on in human history, you weren't here for the live version, let me know. Like, I'm very interested to know, since I'm new to YouTube live, like what's a good time for you guys. If you're like, oh man, I missed that, I wish I could have done it live, it would be better if it was this and that time or day, let me know. I'm interested in that information, because obviously it's more fun and entertaining when we can coordinate back and forth. And basically, like, if you watch Rear Naked Radio, you're looking at my studio right now. Like, you're basically part of a mini podcast right now. You're here in my studio. where a lot of these guests get to tune in. So kind of a cool little thing there. Matthew Van Dyke, when is your academy opening? Man, I've got students that are asking me this. Okay, here's something really interesting. Again, if this is a time capsule, if you're watching this in the future, we are at the end of the month of April, the year 2020. We're still in the middle of the pandemic lockdown for North America. I know there's some other countries on the other side of the world that are through it right now, China, Korea. But as far as North America is concerned, we're like 5 weeks into this thing. And there's some interesting things happening right now in society. Like just last night, just yesterday, I'm noticing a lot of higher profile jiu-jitsu guys that are becoming more public with the fact that they're either opening up their academy, regardless of whether they're allowed to. You know, if their municipality or government is allowing non-essential businesses open, they're saying, you know, screw it, we're opening anyways. That's a really interesting shift in the public dynamic. And it's a very, I don't know how to say this, I guess very American thing to be like, you know, screw your laws, we want freedom. That seems to be a thing that's happening right now. I'm curious to see, as it's, you know, pretty recent thing that broke a day or two ago, a lot of these gyms are starting to become more public about, yeah, we're going to start training, or even, yes, we have been training. I've seen a lot of that. So there is a shifting in the public dynamic. So to get back to your question, when is my academy opening? I'm not going to open it until I am legally allowed to. But the moment that I am legally allowed to, I am definitely opening these doors and getting people back on the mats. I know my students are dying to get back to training. It's not fun being cooped up at home, especially when, you know, jiu-jitsu is your mental escape from the inner demons and such. So yes, I want to open it up as soon as possible, but unfortunately we don't have an exact date from our government here in Alberta about when that's going to be. But soon as possible, man, ASAP, is the best I can tell you. Can confirm, just waiting for the day I'll be able to get back to being put unconscious. Yeah, buddy, we'll happy to oblige. Yeah, Ginger Tanner Daron is saying, yeah, Tanner Rice was one of the ones that was going public with him opening his gym up. And look, I get the argument. I understand it. I actually, I commiserate with his situation in that he's running out of money. He's got an academy that he needs to pay bills on coming up on the first of the month here. His landlord's not giving him any break. He's got thousands of dollars coming out that aren't being re-upped, and he has to buy food. So I get that. I guess everybody's got to make that decision, like what they're willing to forego or what they're willing to do in spite of for their own specific situation. But I don't know, man. There's a lot of good arguments on either side, and I'm very, as I consider myself more of like a bystander. I don't really have a hard opinion one way or the other, and I understand both sides of the story about, you know, trying to flatten the curve, trying to stifle the spread, trying to allow science to catch up with cures and antidotes, but then also our economy is bleeding dry. Like, as a person in Alberta here, for those who don't know, Alberta is basically the oil center of Canada. We produce most, if not all, of the oil, and it's our major commodity. It's the main thing that keeps our economy afloat. And right now, a barrel of Alberta oil is less than $1. It's in the negatives. We have to pay people to take a barrel of oil from us, which is crippling to the economy. So I get it. It's like our economy sucks. It's going to be a hard road back. And the sooner we can start that recreation, the better. So I get it, man. I get it. I don't hate on people who are making that call. What's the difference between Gracie and non-Gracie schools, if any? I mean, there's an interesting documentary that is going to be coming out called Closed Guard that Robert Drysdale has been curating for the last couple of years. And it will probably give a lot more answers historically about what that even means. What does it mean to be of a Gracie lineage or not? But I mean, basically, and this is one of the things that a lot of people either don't want to hear or don't realize is true, is that basically all of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is judo. It's just what we know as judo today doesn't reflect what judo was when it came over to Brazil in the early 20s, when the Gracie family started learning it and picking it up. Back then, it was much more what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, when you think of that, would look like. A lot of self-defense, a lot of throws, a lot of takedowns, but also a lot of nuwaza, which is the judo term for groundwork, which is what we consider most of jiu-jitsu. So a lot of jiu-jitsu as a whole, whether it's coming from a Gracie lineage or not, is really just judo with a different focus. As long as the school you're going to, I guess it's less important where you're getting your information from, as long as the information is good. So that can be a trap, especially for new people that don't know any better. I would suggest, if you're new to jiu-jitsu and you're not sure about your academy, to check out some other instructors online. There's enough, like my own stuff on YouTube, there's enough instructors out there that have free tutorials and stuff that you can kind of vet, like, how does this match up to my instructor? Is this on par? Is this better? Is this worse? And that'll kind of inform you of whether or not you're at a good school. Fan of the podcast. Thanks, brother. Jack Redden saying, keep up the good work. Definitely gonna, man. That's one of the saving graces about this downtime for me, is that I can get caught up on a lot of the digital media that I do through YouTube, through the podcast, through Because Jitsu. That is much harder to do when I'm teaching full time, which is what I do normally. I'll be, when classes are back kicking, I'm teaching like 19 classes a week, which is a lot to. I've got a family at home too, and then all this digital stuff on top of it. So it's a good time to catch up. Golden time for podcasts and digital stuff. What skills should you possess when you reach blue belt? What is the meaning? Okay, this is a cool question. It's different from school to school. So there isn't, for example, in judo, there's a hard and fast curriculum worldwide that you need to check the boxes off before you get to a certain belt. It's very standardized, which is cool. It's got its benefits, but then it's also got its detriments. It can become a little too easy to check those boxes, like you cram for a test kind of thing. But with jiu-jitsu, when you're getting your blue belt, it's going to be different from school to school. I can give you an example of different qualifications that certain instructors would have for a blue belt. For example, and this might surprise a lot of people, when Elio Gracie was first laying out the belt system that he was using way back in the day, blue belt basically meant that you could efficiently and effectively deal with a bigger, stronger opponent using jiu-jitsu. That was it. So if you could deal with a bigger, stronger person using jiu-jitsu, you would be qualified as a blue belt. For myself, I tell my students that I want them to have a good option, one or two good options from every single position, both on a defensive and offensive. I don't want them to be put in a position they've never been in and have no option. I want them to have an option or two that they are, can use competently from every single position. And that takes about, between a year to 2 years generally to get to that point. I think around that 2-year mark is pretty common. And at that point, like I was saying before, you become what I would consider a competent grappler. You're not going to be able to get, taken out of your element at any point. You should have options. Whether or not you can implement them, that's always the struggle, right? Especially against other competent grapplers, but you should have options and you shouldn't be lost when you have a blue belt. How do you respond to people who are back to training that call me a wuss for obeying the man? Let me see if I understood that correctly. How do I respond to people who are back to training? Oh, okay. So this will be the people who are already training before they should be, and so you're basically talking about Gordon Ryan or other of the like. Man, look, like I said, I understand both sides of the equation, and it's going to come down to your own personal um, what you're comfortable with. I guess your risk aversion, I guess, is the term. How risk averse are you? Are you the type that would jump off a bridge and then worry about how to deal with it on the fall down? Then yeah, you're probably already training and aren't concerned that you might, your school might get its business license revoked. You might get $100,000 fine. You just want to roll. Man, that's on you. That's something you can do, but it comes down to what you're willing to take on as far as a risk. Myself personally, I'm going to, like I said, try to stick with the laws of the land for as long as I can. Um, Jack Redden says, yeah, I think if you understand your coach and you're learning, the name over the door doesn't mean too much. Yeah, that's a trap too that people can fall into, thinking that the name means more than it really does. Like that's how you get a lot of culty gyms. They'll, hold way too much weight on the patch on their back, and having never trained anywhere else will think that they are superior to everybody else because of that patch, because of my master, blah, blah, blah. I mean, as long as you're learning jujitsu that works, that's what everybody comes to train and do. There's champions under every affiliation. There's legends of the sport, legends of the art from all sorts of different places, all sorts of different countries too. They're not all just from Brazil. So yeah, I mean, don't get stuck in that cult mentality where you think that your gym or your affiliation or your master is the be all end all, because there's a lot of knowledge out there. We're about 40 minutes into the chat here, guys. We're going to be doing this for about another 20 minutes. Hopefully, don't lose my voice on this. There's one thing I'm learning is the more I do these podcasts, I'm doing other people's podcasts a lot right now too. These live chats, my own podcast is the voice is a valuable commodity that you don't want to expend too much on one given thing, or else you're ruined for the rest of them. Okay, Pedro is saying, have you ever worked out with a Bulgarian bag? Just got it and I'm loving it. And I hate workouts besides straight BJJ. No, actually, I haven't. I see a lot of people online that are starting to use these, I guess, primitive styles of workout, being you've got the Bulgarian bag, you've got hammer swings, you've got club workouts, different ways that you can use. Essentially, you're just using an item that off balances you in a certain way to build certain muscle groups. And I get it. It looks cool. I haven't tried it, but hey, maybe I'll have to give it a go if you think it's that cool. Because I'm the same way in that I just like pure BJJ. I do BJJ to help my BJJ, and I know I'm just killing Brett right now having to hear me say that over and over, BJJ. But yeah, maybe I'll try a Bulgarian bag, see what it's like. Lucas is saying, what's your opinion about personalities of jiu-jitsu minimizing the COVID-19 and the impact that it had on countries like the USA or in Brazil itself, where the president calls it a little flu? Yeah, man, here's the thing. Like I said, I've been kind of I wouldn't consider myself a hardliner on either end of the topic, but I'm a more of a casual observer and trying to watch and notice trends. And the trend that I notice on a lot of people that are on, I guess, what you would consider the right-wing side of this equation, who are, wanting to say F it to this thing more than the other side, is that a lot of them have confirmation bias to their argument. So they start with, I want to train. That's their starting worldview. They want to train, and they're going to conform all of the information that they can find around that worldview. I see that a lot. So if they'll usually start backwards on their arguments and trying to work their way back to their original statement or the original idea of I want to train, and they'll qualify that however they want. This is just a little flu, or I don't know anyone who's got sick, or I'm young and in shape. All of that is to say I just want to train. So I mean, I don't think that's a very strong argument. I am more on the scientific side of things. I would prefer to go with the experts in the field, for what that's worth. Um, and then, we're going to have to decide as a society, as individual societies. The American society is very different than Brazilian society, or different than the German society, different than the South Korean society. They're going to have to figure out, like, when they feel is the best time to come back, whether that has to do with the sickness, whether that has to do with public outcry. There's a lot of things that might cause that shift. And it's going to have to shift in every individual society for one reason or another. And I guess we'll have to see this in retrospect, because in the midst of this, it's much harder to see what the right play is. And I mean, we'll find out and be able to look back in the history books, I guess, to see how we did. I want to train BJJ bad, like so bad. Has anybody seen that video? That was an old video that I think it was called Extra Normal. Was a program that you could do that you'd type something in and it would say it back in a computer voice, like Stephen Hawking style. And then you could overlay that over some cookie cutter animations. And there was this one about a guy wanting to train BJJ so bad, like so bad, but he wasn't willing to pay for it. It was so funny. Definitely check that out. Bulgarian bag is awesome because it's really hard on the grips. Oh, that's good to know. Plus, you do a lot of rotational stuff. I have seen those in the videos. Yeah, and it's hard to train any other way. Hey, man, if you are staying in shape and doing anything that is applicable to BJJ, Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to come back with an advantage. So, yeah, power to you. Everybody's BJJing in the chat now. It's called Jits. No, big no. Hard stop. South American ground karate. Yeah. Hi, Coach. How's it going, Ghostface? Can you please share your thoughts on belt testing? How do you mean? There's a lot of thoughts that could be around belt testing. I guess if you're talking about the actual test itself, it's different from school to school. So you can go to some places that will have a set curriculum that you need to learn a certain amount of moves. You have to have a certain amount of hours on the mat before you're eligible. There's schools that do that. And then there's some schools that just go strictly, purely on proficiency. And the instructor knows what he wants to see a blue belt look like. And when he feels like this white belt 4-stripe is ready for that, he'll just throw him a blue belt at the end of class. And I don't hate on that. I actually think that's pretty cool. It keeps a very high standard for proficiency, and it doesn't allow a lot of McDojo stuff about buying belts. So I'm not opposed to that. I think that's pretty cool. Myself, we actually use kind of, I think it's a cool system in that I, as the instructor, won't allow somebody to be able to test for a belt until I tell them that they're ready. But once they're ready, I give them a list of kind of a build your own tests. So it'll be 5 sweeps from close guard, 3 back takes, 2 takedowns, 3 throws, and you get to sort of fill in what those are for each individual part of the test. So each person doing it can choose different techniques that they're good at or that they're willing to demonstrate and feel like they can do well. So that's how we do that. And then we do a Shark Tank of varying amounts of time for each belt. I think the blue belt one is 45 minutes. So they got to get Shark Tanked for 45 minutes on top of their test that they do. So that's how I do that. Any other questions in the chat here? I'm definitely starting to feel it in my throat. We got about 12 minutes left here, guys. If you just jumped on, thanks for jumping on. This is my first time doing YouTube Live. Having fun here. This video will be up for posterity. You can rewatch it if you want. If you're watching this back in the future, make sure to jump on future ones. I made sure to throw it on Instagram as well as the community tab here for YouTube. So I don't know if I'm going to make it a scheduled thing or not. I may, at least for the time where we aren't training right now, where I've got more free time. I may actually do that. So drop any comments down there in the comment section, whether it's live or you're seeing this later, about what times I think would work best for people watching this. I know that a lot of people like to throw YouTube up on their big screen at night and sort of relax and veg out on their favorites YouTube pages. So if that's a good time to go live, maybe that's the time to do it. But again, I've got to work around my own schedule with my family life and everything else too, but we'll figure something out. All right. Dave Camarillo does testing. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you can find high-level, respectable black belts that do it every given way, man. There's people that will, just do the proficiency thing. They'll just throw a belt at a guy they feel are ready. There are very respectable guys that do the pure curriculum, and man, really, it comes down to the student has to carry the name of the instructor on that belt. So if you get a belt under me, if you get your blue belt, you're a Drew Weatherhead Central Alberta Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt, and that has to carry that moniker into tournament, right? So I'm not going to give that to somebody who isn't ready for that. So that comes down to the instructor. This is an interesting thing about being promoted too. As the student, you really get no say in it. Like, nobody's going to say no to being promoted. And it can feel like, oftentimes it feels like you're not ready for that next belt. It's like you don't want to get tested. You don't feel like you're ready to be a blue belt or a purple belt. And that's fine, but it really comes down to the instructor's opinion, and they aren't going to give that belt, they shouldn't at least be giving that belt to somebody they feel isn't ready. There aren't going to be very many schools you can find in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who you can buy a belt through. It's a very realistic style of martial arts, so that's good for people who are training, knowing that you can't really fake anything on the mats. This isn't like some cookie cutter karate gym where you're pulling punches and you learn your katas so you get your next belt for $300. You got to show the work. You got to show the proficiency. You got to prove the efficacy of what we're learning and what we're teaching in a live sparring situation against an opponent who doesn't want you to do it well, right? So it's perfect for that. Our style has a very high level of efficacy because it has to work, right? Nobody's going to let you do it if it doesn't work. Matthew says, can you up the Rear Naked podcast to at least 2 times a week? We're doing once a week for our full ones right now, but we're actually starting to do these spotlight episodes, we did our first one last week. There was 2 last week, and we've got another one coming up where students can basically sponsor an episode on their gym. So we have that option. Check it out. Send us an email if you're interested in that. We can tell you the rates. It's significantly lower than we charge our sponsors for, to both help ourselves out. We need this money during the downtime too, but also to help your gym out, to get some spotlights internationally on it, which is kind of a cool thing. We brought on a gym's coach last week, Mike Yakulik, who runs a gym here in Alberta, and gave his gym some spotlights and put a full episode out for him. And we were willing to do that with you guys too. So if that's something that interests you, get a hold of us through rearnakedradiopodcast@gmail.com, and we'll set that up. And the more we get, we've got like 3 or 4 more in queue right now, where we're going to get 2 episodes a week, one with a guest and then one with a gym. So if that's what you want, if you want more podcasts, hit us up. We'll get it done. All right, Pedro is saying, it just occurred to me that Stephen Kesting is the light side version of John Danaher. That's hilarious. If this was the Force and you had the Jedi and the Sith, that's hilarious. Yeah, I could definitely see Danaher being that super Sith and Kesting being the leader of the Jedi Council. Hilarious. I love that. That's definitely a meme there. I got voted to be vice president of my university's BJJ club. Oh, that's cool. Any advice for making the sales pitch of BJJ for students, or how to deal with a huge influx of new white belts, which always happens to us? Okay, well, this is a cool situation in that you're in an area being the university, that it has a lot of people that are in their athletic prime that may not have that outlet, that just need to be intrigued enough to go try it out. You're going to be able to do probably some women's classes, do some co-ed classes, and probably fill up a lot of people training. So yeah, I understand about that influx thing. That could be a problem, especially with mat space. Depending how much mat space you have to use, you may have to break down how often you can do classes and how many people can come. As far as getting it started, it really comes down to marketing, and it's fairly easy in a university environment because there's usually like peg boards or cork boards that you can put up posters and people will check it out as they're going to their classes. And really, like, it's very easy to get people interested in jiu-jitsu. You just got to have the classes going, make it so that it's open to the public to come watch. And like, some of the best promotion that I get from my gym are when I put public tournaments on in my city. I get a lot of people that are just walking through the community center watching the tournament, and they're like, wow, that's really cool. They just need to see it and know that it's available, and they'll show up. It's a very easy style to market because it is its own thing. And like we were saying before, the realistic part of jiu-jitsu that's what sold me. That's what got me doing it. I did several martial arts before getting to jiu-jitsu, but once I saw it and once I experienced it, I was hooked because I knew, like, this has to be real. Stefan, yeah. So guys, if you got any other suggestions for future lives, let me know. Drop them in the comment section. This has been a lot of fun. We got about 5 more minutes, so I'll take maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Otherwise, we'll see you. Make sure to check us out if you don't already follow on Instagram at because_jitsu. Check out Rear Naked Radio on Instagram, as well as here on YouTube. Subscribe on there. Check out the Reverse Kimura series at reversekimura.com. And yeah, if you got any other questions for me or suggestions for future videos, I know the technique ones are hard to come by right now because I don't have a partner to do it with. But once our doors do open back up, we will definitely be getting more techniques videos going up on this channel. In the meantime, I'll probably be putting a little more of this person-to-person kind of interaction. All right, OG Diggs says, I had a question on competing before the world changed. Yeah, I'm a 4-stripe white belt who just turned 18, right on, and I'm on track to getting my blue belt soon. Congratulations. I guess not congratulations yet. You haven't got it yet. My last tournament was white belt teens, but now the question cut off there. I don't know what your question is here, dude. It sounds pretty cool so far. Drop it in the chat so I know where you're going with this. What's your opinion on gym loyalty? I'm probably not the person to ask because I'm not going to be the answer that a lot of people want to hear, in that I'm a huge fan of cross training. I'm not that strict about gym loyalty. Like, I'm really not. I think that's, like I was saying before, there's a lot of ways that can be turned into a cult situation where you feel like, or you're led to feel like you're not allowed to train with other people, which is bullshit. I'm not a big fan of that. Really, I feel like your tribe, your vibe should attract your tribe. That's a common saying in jiu-jitsu. You're going to find somewhere that vibes well with how you like to learn, with the environment you like to learn in. And if you're not feeling that vibe in the place you're at right now, it's probably not where you're supposed to be. It's not where you're going to learn the best and where you're going to thrive the most. And I'm not opposed to that being multiple places. If you get your MMA training one place, your jiu-jitsu training another place, maybe your no-gi one place, your gi another place, man, it's your life. Figure out what works best for you. Is there, there's the continuation to OG Dags saying, I've been competing against blue belt adults. Okay, is there any way I can make that jump in age and skill competitively? Well, I wouldn't be able to answer that very well without seeing where your skill level is. But once you get that blue belt, it doesn't matter anyways. You're going to be in the blue belt. So if you want to challenge up right now to get ready for what that's going to be like, good on you, man. Like there is a significant jump between white belt to blue belt, and that shouldn't be to dissuade you from competing at blue belt. It is just the next level. You know, it's going to be more difficult, and it should be, right? It's different. You're going to get people that have a lot more competency, you know, in different situations than you'd see at white belt. The white belt is a weird one to compete at because you never know who you're going against. The skill differential can be infinite between somebody who just started to somebody who's a 4 stripe that has